She was born in the dusty corners of an Alabama trailer park, where broken windows and broken promises were part of the scenery. Her mother worked 2 jobs and still came home with empty hands, while her father drifted in and out of their lives like a ghost. There were no bedtime stories, no college plans on the fridge, just silence, survival, and the hum of the TV that never stopped. Most kids around her dreamed small or didn't dream at all. But she was different. She didn't know how, but deep down, she believed she didn't belong there forever. School wasn't much better. The teachers overlooked her. The kids laughed at her thrift store shoes, and no one expected anything from her, except failure. But she had something they didn't see. A mind that noticed patterns, numbers, and logic in the chaos. While others zoned out in math class, she connected dots that weren't even on the page. Her notebooks were filled with scribbles of imaginary companies, lists of expenses, and plans to escape. Money wasn't evil in her eyes, it was freedom, and she wanted out. By age 16, she was already working late at a gas station, saving every dollar she could hide from her mom's boyfriend. At night, she'd sit under the weak light of the kitchen lamp reading secondhand books about investing and entrepreneurship, books she picked up for $1 at garage sales. No one around her cared about stocks or business, but she studied them like they were the only way out of a burning house. There was no mentor, no YouTube tutorials, no internet most nights, just instinct and obsession. She didn't dream of becoming rich to buy designer clothes or a flashy car. She dreamed of peace, of not jumping when the rent was due, of not hiding money in the cereal box so it wouldn't get stolen. Her version of success was simple: stability. And maybe, just maybe, proving to everyone who dismissed her that being poor didn't mean being stupid. It was this quiet fire, lit in a place the world forgot, that would one day push her to do something no one saw coming. She got into college the hard way: scholarships, part-time jobs, and a relentless drive most people couldn't understand. It wasn't Ivy League, just a modest state university with outdated textbooks and crowded lecture halls. But to her, it was gold. She soaked in everything: finance, economics, statistics, like it was the language of a life she was fighting to claim. She graduated with top honors, thinking it would finally open a door. But Wall Street didn't care about her GPA. The names on her resume didn't impress, and the accent in her voice, soft Southern, proud and real, felt out of place in glass towers. In interview after interview, she saw the same looks: polite smiles that didn't reach the eyes, questions loaded with doubt, and rejections that came with phrases like, "not the right cultural fit." Behind the polished desks, they didn't see her mind, they saw her background. Wrong school, wrong story, wrong everything. She started to notice the pattern. The job offers went to the kids who wore custom suits and had family names that meant something. Meanwhile, she was stuck answering phones at a mid-sized investment firm, doing tasks far below her skills. But she watched. She listened. Every overheard conversation, every spreadsheet that crossed her desk. She treated it like a lesson. If no one was going to give her a seat at the table, she would learn the game from the sidelines. Quietly, patiently. What hurt the most wasn't the rejection, it was being invisible. She knew she was smarter than most of the men she brought coffee to. But when she spoke, they barely looked up. Every ignored idea, every brush off, added fuel to the fire. They didn't see her as a threat, and that was their first mistake. Because while they dismissed her, she was already building something in secret. Plan. A strategy. A way in whether they liked it or not. Her days were filled with tasks no one wanted: coffee runs, endless data entry, booking meetings she'd never be part of. But her nights? That's when the real work began. After dinner, in her small apartment with peeling paint and thin walls, she'd open her old laptop and dive deep into the markets. She wasn't just watching stocks move, she was decoding behavior, learning not just how things worked, but why they moved the way they did. She read everything she could find: financial reports, trading forums, investor letters. But what fascinated her most were the gray areas. The patterns before earnings calls, the sudden spikes before news dropped, the emotional reactions hidden inside the numbers. It was a world built on timing, instinct, and psychology. And while others relied on degrees and connections, She trusted what had always saved her. Her ability to see what others missed. That's when the blog idea hit her. She created it under a fake name, something gender-neutral and forgettable. No photo, no bio, just bold, detailed predictions based on her late-night analysis. She didn't claim to be a financial advisor. She simply wrote what she saw coming. At first, barely anyone read it. But when a few of her calls turned out right, very right, word started spreading in quiet corners of online finance spaces. Traders began quoting her posts. Small investors shared her blog in private chats. And each night, as her page views climbed, she felt something shift. Power. Not the kind that comes with money or status, but the kind that grows when people start listening, even if they don't know who you are. By day, she was still invisible at the office. But by night, her words were moving real money. And no one had a clue who was behind it. It started with a small cap stock she'd been watching for weeks, one most people ignored. She noticed strange volume spikes, subtle insider movements, and a quiet patent filing no one was talking about. She posted her take on the blog, predicting a breakout within days. The post didn't promise anything. It simply laid out her logic, clear and sharp. 2 days later, the stock surged over 40%, and her inbox exploded. Suddenly, her blog wasn't just popular, it was trusted. Emails poured in from strangers thanking her for helping them make rent, pay off debt, even start savings for their kids. Traders called her a genius. Some even begged for one-on-one advice. But no one knew her real name. No one knew she was a junior assistant in a second-tier firm, writing those insights in pajamas at her kitchen table. And more importantly, no one knew she didn't have the license to be giving any kind of market advice. That was the lie she didn't plan for. She never told people she was a pro, but she also didn't correct them when they assumed. The blog grew fast, too fast. Finance influencers started quoting her, investment newsletters referenced her calls, and a few hedge fund analysts even followed her anonymously. Her predictions kept landing. It was thrilling and terrifying, because behind the screen, she knew she was skating on thin ice. She started to feel the weight of it, the double life, the fake name, the legal gray zone. But every time she thought about shutting it all down, another message would come in. You changed my life. It wasn't about fame or money anymore. It was about proving she belonged in a world that had slammed every door in her face. So she kept going. Quietly, carefully, hoping the cracks wouldn't show, not yet. The turning point came when a well-known hedge fund manager shared one of her posts on Twitter, calling it the sharpest independent analysis I've seen all year. Overnight, her blog stats spiked. Thousands of new readers poured in, and for the first time, she wasn't just influencing retail traders. She was on the radar of the big players. She felt a strange mix of fear and validation. The same world that once ignored her was now quoting her. But they still didn't know who she was. Emails with corporate domains started showing up in her inbox. Fund managers asking for collaboration. Brokers offering to pay for premium analysis. Fintech startups wanting to partner. Some even offered full-time roles, without ever hearing her voice or seeing her face. All they cared about were the results. And her results? Consistently ahead of the curve. She created a paid tier for her blog, cautious but hopeful. Within weeks, it was bringing in more than her day job. At the office, nothing had changed. She was still organizing spreadsheets, scheduling meetings for analysts who now unknowingly read her work after hours. The irony stung, but she kept her mask on. One mistake, one slip of her real identity, and it could all fall apart. No license, no credentials, just talent, grit, and a fake name holding it all together. So she smiled through the 9 to 5, then came home and built an empire behind a keyboard. For the first time in her life, she had money in the bank. Real money. Not enough to retire, but enough to feel free. Enough to dream without panic. But with that freedom came pressure. Every post carried risk now. Every prediction came with the fear of being found out. The higher she climbed, the further she had to fall. And still, she kept going. Because now Wall Street was listening, and she wasn't ready to give that up. It started with a message she didn't expect. An email from a business journalist asking for an interview. Polite tone, friendly wording, but her gut told her something was off. She ignored it. Then came another, and another. Within days, her inbox was flooded with press inquiries. Then, without warning, the article dropped. A full exposé. Her real name, her background, her job title, her lack of license. Everything. The media didn't hold back. Headlines called her a fraud, a dangerous voice in finance, an internet scammer playing with people's money. Clips of news anchors mocked her homegrown analysis, painting her as reckless and irresponsible. They ignored her track record. They ignored the people she'd helped. All they saw was a woman from nowhere who had dared to win without permission. And that was unforgivable in their world. The backlash was brutal. Platforms banned her blog overnight. Payment processors froze her earnings. Sponsors cut ties within hours. Her email filled with threats, insults, and demands for refunds, even from people who had made money following her predictions. In the span of a weekend, everything she had built came crashing down. And just like that, the mask wasn't her biggest problem anymore. It was the spotlight, and she was burning under it. Alone in her apartment, she watched her name trend online for all the wrong reasons. The fear she had lived with for years had finally caught up. But mixed with that fear was something else. Anger. Not because she got caught, but because they never cared why she did it. No one asked about the girl who had no connections, no chances, and no voice. They just decided she didn't belong. And now, the same system that once ignored her was trying to erase her. The legal letters came fast. Cease and desist orders. Threats of fines. Whispers of criminal charges. The core accusation? Impersonating a licensed financial advisor and misleading the public. She hadn't taken $1 to manage anyone's money. She never told anyone to buy this or sell that. But that didn't matter. In the eyes of the law and the industry, she had crossed a line. And now they wanted to make an example out of her. Her defense was simple but powerful. I never told anyone what to do. I just shared what I saw. Every post had a disclaimer. Every prediction was analysis, not instruction. She hired a small legal team, paid for by what little was left in her frozen accounts, and prepared to fight. It wasn't just about clearing her name, it was about survival. She knew she didn't have the backing of institutions, but she had something else, the truth, and a growing crowd that still believed in her. Public opinion was split. Some said she deserved prison. Others said Wall Street was just scared of a smart outsider who played their game and won. People she'd helped came forward, writing letters, posting videos, sharing how her work had changed their lives. She wasn't just a symbol of rebellion anymore. She became something more complicated, a question. Was she a fraud? Or was she proof that knowledge doesn't always come with a diploma? In the end, the court didn't throw her in jail, but they made it clear, her blog, as it was, couldn't continue. She paid a fine, lost her online platforms, and was banned from giving financial commentary for a time. But she wasn't broken, not even close, because through it all, she saw something she hadn't seen before. Power in being underestimated, and a chance maybe to rise again, this time in plain sight. Her bank account was nearly empty again. The fines, the legal fees, and the collapse of her online business had drained everything she'd built. Sponsors vanished without a goodbye. Followers who once praised her went silent, or turned on her. Felt like starting over, except this time, everyone knew her name. Not as a hero, not even as a villain. Just a cautionary tale. But under the shame and the noise, something solid remained. Skill. She could still read markets with razor-sharp instinct. She still understood timing, psychology, and the patterns that most professionals missed. And this time she had experience, real, earned, painful. The world had stripped her of her fake name and online success, but it couldn't erase what she'd learned. And slowly, that realization became her fuel. She disappeared from the public eye for a while. No blog, no interviews, no posts, just silence and work. She took side gigs to survive. Freelance data analysis, ghostwriting for fintech blogs, slowly rebuilding brick by brick. But in the background, she was sketching out something new, something legal, something that couldn't be taken down with a headline. She wasn't trying to fool anyone anymore. She was trying to build something real. The difference this time was mindset. She wasn't chasing validation or proving she belonged. She already knew she did. And that changed everything. From the quiet of her small apartment, once again she started building. Not from hope, but from certainty. Because when you've already lost it all and survived, fear stops having the same power. And for her, failure wasn't an end. It was raw material. The idea came from her own story, what she wished had existed when she was starting out. A tool not built for hedge funds or Harvard grads, but for people like her. The overlooked. The doubted. She designed the app around simplicity. No jargon, no hidden fees, no fake promises. Just real market education, insights, and alerts anyone could understand. Her goal wasn't to tell people what to do, but to help them see what was possible. She called it Ground Floor, a name that spoke to the ones still at the bottom just looking for a way in. With no investors backing her, she bootstrapped the first version with freelance income and late-night coding help from a friend. Launch day was quiet. A few downloads. A few curious users. But then word began to spread. Fast. Users weren't just engaging, they were sharing. Because it felt honest. Because it made them feel smart, not small. What she built wasn't just an app. It was a message. You don't need permission to learn the game. In 2 months, Ground Floor hit 100,000 downloads. In 4, 1 million. Not because of flashy marketing, but because it worked. People trusted it. More importantly, they trusted her. The same woman the media had buried now had a user base that stretched across the country. Teachers, truck drivers, nurses, single moms. People who had always been told money wasn't their language. This time she didn't hide. No fake names. No smoke and mirrors. She went on podcasts, gave talks, and shared her real story, flaws and all. She told them about the trailer park, the mistakes, the fall. And people listened. Not because she was perfect, but because she was real. And in a world full of filtered success stories, that was her edge. Ground Floor wasn't just changing wallets. It was changing mindsets. Today, she lives in a modest home, not a mansion, not a penthouse, but paid in full. No debt. No pretending. Just peace. Ground Floor now has millions of users and has partnered with schools and nonprofits to bring financial literacy to people who never had it. She's not chasing Wall Street anymore. She's building something beside it. For the people it forgot. For the version of herself who never had a shot. But not everyone sees it that way. There are still critics, loud ones. Commentators who say she manipulated trust. That her early success was built on deception. That she gamed the system and now hides behind a redemption arc. And maybe, to them, she'll always be a rule breaker. An outsider who didn't pay her dues. Someone who cheated to get ahead. But to the people she's helped, she's something different. A reminder that intelligence doesn't always come with the right resume. That talent doesn't need a permission slip. That sometimes the system only listens after you break the rules. They call her a visionary. A rebel. A voice they wish they'd had sooner. For them, she didn't just change her life. She changed theirs. So, liar or visionary? That's not a question for the headlines to answer. It's a question for you, the viewer, the dreamer, the skeptic. She never asked to be a role model. She just refused to disappear. And now, the game will never be the same again.